All right. Hey, everybody. I am ready. Let's go. All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Peter. Debugging with ephemeral containers is what we're going to talk about. I'm co-founder and CTO at Shipyard. We deal in ephemeral environments, not to be confused. But you might be asking, who is this guy talking to me? Born and raised in New York City, been writing code for 15 years, primarily deal in Docker and Kubernetes day to day. Founded some local meetups, so not a stranger to the crowds. Vim users, high five. And if you know Ludwig Göransson, great, he's a great soundtrack writer. But all right, this is what we're going to talk about. All right, today we're going to talk about distroless containers, why they're great, but a problem with them, and then a solution to that problem, which is ephemeral containers. How do you use them, and what can you do with them? Right? So distroless containers, right? You have containers, a lot of people have huge ones. You don't want that. So maybe you want to just have really tiny containers that you can spin up on your clusters and have them start really fast. So what you start building are these distroless containers which only contain your application and its dependencies, right? So now you have this little tiny container, right? Let's say some megabytes, right? Instead of the 2 gigabytes, right? That's going to help you improve on the image pull time, and that's going to help you improve the startup time. And that's going to be really useful because not only are you going to save time, you're also going to save money, right? Because let's say your image is huge, that's space locally, that's space in your registry, that's space in your cluster, right? So it's not just 2 gigabytes on your local machine, that's 2 gigabytes in a lot of places, right? And so if you have a lot smaller image, that's some megabytes, not only are you going to save time, not only are you going to save money, but your cluster will run that much smoother as well. Right? But there's one problem. It's not just pretty rainbows and it solves all the problems. The problem is, if you don't have any cruft in these containers, then how are you going to debug things? Because the problem is this. Distroless images do not have sh or bash in them, right? Let alone all the other tools. Right? So if you're running a distroless image and something goes wrong and you need to go into the cluster and see like, oh, what's going on in this pod, you don't have any shell. So what are you going to do? Ephemeral containers. Not to be confused with ephemeral environments, right? Ephemeral containers, you can go to that doc right there. It's a Kubernetes concept, and we're going to talk about, all we're going to learn here is how do you use them, right? So ephemeral containers, they were introduced, at least the new interface was introduced in Kubernetes 1.2.3. That's the latest. It's not even stable yet. So you're definitely going to have to pull up some new version of Kubernetes to give it a try. It's been around for a bit, but the new interface is great. What you can do with ephemeral containers is when you have this distroless pod, right, you don't have a shell in it, what you can do is take a container and add it to that pod, right? That's the ephemeral container, right? And the useful thing is that it shares resources and processes and everything with that distroless container. Right, so what that means is you can have this full pod, full container running inside your pod, and now you can do all the things with all the tools that you wanted because your other container doesn't have the tools, right? So obviously this is especially useful when you have these distroless containers where you don't have your shell, you don't have all the tools that you need to debug what the heck is going on inside this pod. And I know we have some SUSE people here, but K3 is a really great, easy way to basically pull up any Kubernetes version and start playing around with it. So if you want to install 1.2.3, that's the command on the bottom that you have to run. Just run it on any VM, you'll get it going. All right, this is the money right here. So kubectl debug. This is how you start an ephemeral container. Let's say you have an Nginx pod. For whatever reason, it doesn't have shell in it. You can say, all right, give me a busybox shell. So okay, now you have this ephemeral container, now you have a shell in this otherwise shell-less pod. What can you do? Well, they share process namespaces, so right away you can say, okay, what's going on? Are these processes even running? Run your PS, see what's going on. Let's say you have some service running that actually responds to signals. You want it to reload, you change some config file. Now what you can do is you can go in, use kill to send whatever signal you're trying to send, and now you can reload your service or do whatever you need to do. And then also, this ephemeral container is running within the same network context as this distroless container that's having some kind of problem. So what you can do is you can inspect what's going on inside that pod from its network perspective. And so you can run ping and whatever you want. And that's how you use it. A lot of information. I hope you try it out. kubectl debug is the interface. You can hit us up on any of these socials Ephemeral environments to learn about that, and kubeless.com to find out a lot about Kubernetes. That's it. Thank you very much.